Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm recording this on my these things, um, but I am driving, and the morning light has just come, and of course I'm in traffic because I'm heading to Santa Cruz for my weekly visit with my mama. And anyway, Boomer and I are on the road. We've been on the road for some time. And I wanted to do a follow-up to the video that I recorded around boundaries. And really where boundaries can be more of a cause of separation from ourselves and others rather than productive. And not always. So first off, I want to say that boundaries are good, generally speaking. My slant on the last video was really about becoming curious where your need for boundaries lie outside of an abuse situation, where it is an offense situation or a trigger response, and really asking some deeper questions around that. So I want to make it clear that boundaries are not bad. I also want to make it clear that the boundaries that I had, I actually should not have ever had to lay a boundary like I did with my father. So I am not co-signing on that level of dysfunction. I am not stamping an approval on that. I am simply saying that there are times when I think about, had I been healed enough within myself to continue to have some deeper conversations with my dad and help him understand what it was that I was saying and why that was important to me, instead of laying a hard boundary and having that be really the end of the conversation, where I continued to be offended because my father couldn't understand what I was asking or wasn't able to touch his own dysfunction in that. And so that morning, before I recorded, I listened to a podcast with Robert Faulkner, who is a friend of my therapist and also in psychotherapy, and very interesting. And Robert Faulkner was talking about what he calls unattached burdens that can attach themselves to us. And he referenced a study, and this is something that has replayed and replayed in my mind. He referenced a study that was done at one of the research schools where they took male rats, or a rat, I don't remember whether it was singular or plural, and put them into an environment where periodically they gave the experience, the atmosphere of these smells that were pleasant. One of which was almonds, one of which was cherries, I think. And the rat was fine with the smell. And then intermittently, they did shock to the rat when one of those smells was present, until the rat had a response automatically to the smell without the shock. And then they took the semen from the male rat and impregnated a female rat that had been completely, never smelled the cherry, never smelled the almond, was never around the male, And she became pregnant, and then when she had her pups at the right time, they exposed those pups to the cherry, to the almond smell. And the pups had the shock response. I just want you to let that sink in for a moment. They didn't stop the study there. They went ahead, and those pups that had the shock response when associated to those scents, those smells, they had pups. And the same was true for those pups. This was in an effort to understand, is our trauma patterns, addiction, depression, crime, all of those things that we would deem negative for ourselves and society, does it come strictly from genetics, environmentally? And that was really a brilliant study. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about this term that came through my mind, which was stains on our DNA. So I get into Santa Cruz, I record that video, I post that. I tell my mom nothing about it. And she proceeds to want to share things about her life in the afternoon of our visit. And this is fairly rare for my mom to want to talk about the past, and particularly her young years. And she wanted to share with me bits and pieces about her childhood, which was incredibly traumatic. I don't know that my mom is fully connected to the level of intensity, because life was very different in her age, in her time as a young woman. As a child, she was given over to her aunt to have her raise her. Her mom was an alcoholic, had an affair. Things were very chaotic. My mom was sent to boarding school, Catholic boarding school, so God only knows what happened there. And that's a brave soul right there on a motorcycle in the middle of this traffic, weaving through. I don't know. So then my mom was late to enter high school because she did end up living with her mom for a time, who she barely knew. She actually didn't recognize her mom as her mom when she came to visit one time. She had no idea who she was. But eventually, my grandmother had my mom come and live with them. She and my grandfather were divorced. She was now married to the man that she had been having an affair with. And the man that she married was very abusive. And when she was a young teenager, entering high school, she was beaten by her stepfather within an inch of her life, and was hospitalized, and she could not start high school on time because she needed to heal, and they needed to make sure that all the bruises were gone and the remnants of that. That in itself is so traumatic, coupled with the fact that she was really, she didn't have advocacy. There was no one really in her life that was truly on her side. Both of her parents were married to people that didn't want her in the picture. And so she was given away to families she didn't know. She was just offloaded. And I wonder what that level of rejection must have felt like, and then to be brutalized. So then she wanted to tell me about when she and my dad lived in Virginia and had their first house and what that was like, and how my dad, in his active alcoholism, became belligerent and violent towards her, threatened with a gun, and did violence, I'll just leave it there, did violence against my mother while under the influence. And then I think about, so much so that my mom was on the run with my two older sisters for some time. And ultimately took my father back. He came to find them. And then I was part of that equation. And I look at this and I think, stains on the DNA. I always associated my trigger reaction from my father talking about what he talked about and the way in which he referred to women and spoke of women. I always thought that that had to do solely with the sexual abuse that I had as a young girl, and the subsequent abuses that came after that. But I also think that it was, after hearing about this study, very likely heightened by the stains on my DNA. What I know is that my trigger response with my dad was an opportunity for me to take a harder look at the pain that I was carrying. It also beckons us to look at the pain that my father was carrying in order to have been so belligerent, to have needed the numbing so greatly, the blaming, all of that dysfunction that came from using alcohol as a medicine. And then women as a medicine. And the stains on my DNA. And this is, I have so much compassion for my father, even though it is really hard. It is really, like, viscerally hard to understand that my father terrorized my mom in that way. And that he ran from himself so much. And the things that were so painful to touch for him. I don't know, because I can't ask him until I can. Until I transition out of this world. But this is where the questions come in. And when people hurt people, I mean, this has been up here forever. Hurt people. But I think right now it's in here. And oh, humanity, we are so messy. And I know in my journey of boundaries, before I really put myself in an opportunity to need to be really clear about my boundaries, like I have very, very safe relationships in my life right now. And before I challenge that, I get to learn what my reflection is in God's eyes at a much deeper level. who am I according to my Maker? Who am I? And how wildly delighted is God with the thought of me? And I believe that this is true for each one of us. And until I can actually reach that in here, I have a very low level of trust with putting myself into a situation where I need to create a sense of boundary. And I don't mean negative boundary, but just in general, being who I am. I don't ever want to have to say who I am. I want to walk in who I am and not question it constantly, not be letting my own need for so something that has been prominent, like I look at how many times I've been married and why I got into those relationships and allowed it to become such a permanent thing. And through the work with my therapist, and even before, I realized that I was not seeing people in their in the currency of who they are in the moment, because I had a little girl inside of me that was clamoring for the love and attention that she didn't receive. I'll give you an example of that. My mom and I are very close now. It was not always like that. She was fairly disconnected when I was growing up, and she would be warm and then cold, warm and then cold, warm and then cold. I never really had sure footing. I never really understood that. I always had the sense that she would cut my throat to get what she needed, and that was very destabilizing. I don't think that that's true, but that was how it felt, growing up with such an unstable expression of love. How could she do any differently, though, honestly? Last week I was visiting her, or the week before, I was visiting her, and I tell my mom, I love you, Mama, every time I leave her apartment. And she looked at me and she said, I know, you tell me all the time. Instead of it being a fluid back and forth thing, a less healed version of me would have closed up a little bit, because I would have taken that as a rejection of the love I was sharing with her. And love is a vulnerable thing to share. But in light of what I know about my mom, it is hard for her to truly receive love. And I took it just like that. And I just kept coming for her. It didn't change my behavior at all. Whereas I might have been highly triggered with a less healed version of myself. Self-protection. But I didn't. I made a decision. And I was able, thank God, that I was able to. Because the following week, it was much easier. I think that my mom needed to settle in to the fact that I'm committed to seeing her every week and that we have some really special time and we're going to get business taken care of so that she has less to worry about and she has an advocate for all of her appointments and it's okay and we have fun. And I felt her settle into that. I mean, so quickly. Had I closed up, she would have felt that on some level and maybe, just maybe, not been able to settle in quite so deeply and confidently. And I want my mom to truly be confident in my love for her and my stability in that. So this is where that separation can happen in a moment, in a microsecond. And I think it's really important to pay attention to those microseconds and just like take another microsecond to pause and breathe in, like, what am I offering here? What can I give in this moment? Because there is a level of healing that breath of compassion, steadiness, and resisting self-protection brought healing to my mom's heart. And through that, brought another layer of healing to my own heart. How beautiful is that? It is beautiful. I'm going to cry. It is so beautiful. And my mom at 87, I want her to have the sweetest memories, because I truly don't know how long, I mean, we don't know anybody's timeline on this earth, but we don't know how long I get to have these moments with her. And so I am going to take every opportunity. And where my healthy boundaries are coming in is that we have a deal. We go out and do something playful and fun every time I'm there during one of the 2 days. And we share in the financial load of that, because in the past I have wanted to do well. I wanted to be blessing those around me that I love in such a way that I would often deplete myself to do it, and actually rob the people that I love around me from experiencing the joy and the strength and the confidence of knowing how to do what they want to do. I mean, and these are not, maybe it's going to get a latte. Maybe it's going to get breakfast out or see a band. My mom loves music, and I also love music, so we indulge that part of life. So that is a healthy boundary, because it's not just good for me, it's good for her. And it's good for our relationship. It's good for the wholeness of our relationship, so that I don't find myself getting depleted and then coming from a place of depletion. And she also is a contributor. That's a healthy boundary. That's an understanding that we have, and I'm so grateful for that. So on this conversation of boundaries, stains on the DNA, I think are a real thing and worth paying attention to, worth understanding. And, I'm just learning that not just to have a boundary is healthy, but there are healthy boundaries to have rather than unhealthy boundaries to have. And the more healed I am, the less I need to build borders around myself emotionally to protect. Love is not self-seeking. And essentially that's what self-protection is a level of self-seeking. And so I would like to say that as I do the work to heal, or show up for the work that God's doing, I'm not sure how that works, but I'm showing up for it extremely imperfectly, and yet it's still happening. And the beauty of the way in which just the idea of love is morphing in my heart allows me to love more. I don't want to say better, but more true, more with more grit to it, more stability, which is not something that I had a lot of before. So anyway, I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you're listening. Thank you for taking time. I would love any comments that you might have around this. And we humans, we come from a long line of messiness, and we are very messy. So grace, respect, understanding, and even not understanding, but just respect. And knowing that, even when we can deeply disagree on a common experience, oftentimes the disagreements are still like, well, this was true for me. This is what was true for me. And to allow somebody's experience, even if you were in the room, to be what was true for them, even if their perception seems so off, it doesn't matter. That's what's true for them. And having respect and having conversations around that, I think, can produce a much more beautiful, connected outcome with the people around us and with our community, even. So, all right, that is all. I am stopping to use the restroom before I head over the hill. So bless you, and have a beautiful day, and please leave a comment if you want. Okay, bye.